Good morning. Welcome everybody to RPG Horror Stories. I'm going to give you a little bit of a content warning. Today we do have several stories that do involve rape, incest, sexual assault, things of that manner. So if you do not jive with that thing, please leave now because I don't want to end up triggering any sort of issues with you. Alright? I'll see you in the next one though. DM decides it's appropriate to incorporate a rape dwarf into our one-shot involving my 11-year-old sibling. Hey all, never shared anything here before, but I've been watching a lot of RPG horror story narrations. Den of the Drake, Quick Crab, D&D Doge, here's to you guys. And was unfortunately reminded of the worst one-shots I have ever experienced. This did happen a few years ago, so forgive some of the details being splotchy or lackluster. To give some context, this took place with my old friend group that consisted of 5 to 6 people, depending on who was able to make it. The main characters of the story being the DM, myself, and my at the time 11-year-old sibling. We'll call them Candle after their character, who had eagerly made their own tabaxi after listening to me tell them the tales from our campaign. Since they were still in school and we were all 19 to 20-year-old college students who all took a specific weekday off, Candle was only able to join us during breaks, so we figured we'd do a quick non-canon one-shot over spring break. This group also had a lot of inappropriate NPCs and scenarios as we were all college students laughing stupid shit off. But we all still made it clear to each other what our boundaries were, or would speak up if something happened in the game that we did not like. So I guess it shouldn't have been too surprised when it happened, but at the same time, we had all agreed to keep this one-shot tame, considering we all had young siblings, and agreed it'd be pretty uncomfortable to make a sex joke in front of them, let alone a rape joke. Things started off great. Candle was our assassin rogue and was introduced in an elaborate scheme that they had concocted with the DM, in which they had been hired by a king that we had pissed off. This involved Candle stalking us at the local tavern, easily passing all of their stealth checks as our rolls were hilariously miserable, starting a bar fight to keep us distracted while they ran up to our party's room to booby-trap it. And then sneaking back out to watch from afar and wait of our demise. We were all beyond impressed that they were able to come up with this, as we had never really dealt with assassination attempts. So when the room caught fire from the trap being sprung, we started to take things more seriously while still keeping fun in mind. I also want to note that before making this plan with the DM, Candle checked with us if we were okay with them hunting our players. We agreed because we thought it was funny, and we were used to getting into trouble that put us in danger. Fast forward a bit. Our party is still being silently hunted by Candle, are having no luck in detecting them or figuring out why their room mysteriously exploded in fire. So naturally, they continued on their way in utter obliviousness. The reason for the party stopping in this town in particular was to take part in a festival. It was basically our fantasy spring break. As we gathered at the entrance of the festival, Candle made an attempt on my character's life with a stab to my back as they tried blending into the crowd behind us. Unfortunately for them, they rolled a nat 1, and instead tripped and fell face first at my character's heels. They quickly got back up and made a believable excuse, saying, "I'm sorry, I was so excited for the festival." Jokingly, we asked the DM if they could roll for deception, and they rolled a nat 20. So, of course, our oblivious and just as excited party believed them, and eagerly invited them to join us for the festivities, and as we wanted them to feel involved, and have more opportunities to try hunting us. Candle agreed, and we all continued on. Now, here's where things started to crack. As we continued to enjoy the festival, Candle was having more and more fun interacting with us and rolling with us rather than against us. So their objective of killing us was quickly thrown out of the windows, especially after we called Candle our new party friend. Note, Candle was having a lot of fun hunting us, but it became less important to them the longer this session went on. We all decided to retire to a different tavern, making a joke about hoping this one was as lit as the first one, and Candle decided to roll a perception check for any traps in the room to appear more trustworthy. What they found was an open air conditioning vent in the ceiling, as the screws had been clearly tampered with, making it easier to open and close. We all thought this was odd and decided to investigate it. Again, wanting to prove trustworthiness, Candle volunteered. Being a short and nimble tabaxi, we had no arguments against this and helped them into the vent. As they climbed inside, the DM described something we never could have expected. As you crawl into the vent, you hear that you're not alone. The sounds of heavy footsteps echo around the middle interior, accompanied by a moist, slimy sound of something thick and long dragging along across the cover of the vents. We all looked at each other with visible confusion, trying to piece together what the hell could be in the vents, as this did not sound like anything we had ever encountered. Candle, unfaltering and eager to impress us, continues crawling through them to discover the creature making this sound. As they kept moving, the noise got louder and grosser, as the DM described. Candle asked to light a small fire or cast a spell to brighten the vents, and upon doing so, they were met with a 2-foot-tall, hairy, plump, and naked dwarf with, as the DM described, a 12-foot slimy cock dragging behind him. You can see that it's none other than another one of the king's assassins, the rape dwarf. Come on, people. Listen, when there's kids involved, you don't fucking pull this shit. This shouldn't have to be said, but apparently it does. I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up, like, ruining this friend group. Because, yeah, they all had an agreement to not do this? All of them? There's gonna be happy fun times. Little kid tries to murder our party. That's what it was gonna be. And, they decided to pull out the rape dwarf. What is this dude's problem? What the fuck is his problem? Roll post. Everyone at the table instantly yelled at our DM, gesturing to my sibling as I held my head in my hands and apologized profusely to Candle. They were uncomfortable, clearly, but laughed awkwardly as they just wanted to continue enjoying the campaign despite everyone being frustrated, or just as uncomfortable that this was even mentioned, let alone in front of an 11-year-old. We took a miniature break to use the restroom and get waters while one of the part members talked to the DM about taking care of this. And we came back with a solution. One of the things mentioned to the DM was to not call it the rape dwarf, as that was already uncomfortable, but he continued to do so anyways. The rape dwarf falls through the vents and your party gets ready to fight. Before you can raise your swords, however, you hear a familiar voice coming from the lobby of the tavern, yelling "Hinga-dinga-dargan!" And the door is broken down by the murder dwarf, Chongodorf Bastard Bingle, standing over it. For context, Chongodorf was introduced in a one-shot IDM for this party, solely as a joke NPC that was invulnerable and existed for the sole purpose of murdering people he didn't like. I know, stupid character, but he was never meant to have any significance in the story and was mostly an inside joke for us. The murder dwarf stares the rape dwarf in with the eyes of fury, wasting no time in leaping forward at his rival and killing him instantly. The party is saved. It was getting to be late about that time anyways, so we all decided to call it then and there. Candle was still a little uncomfortable, but was more focused on talking to me about how much fun they had and me telling them how much I loved their character. So the night ended on a kind of good note. Candle never did get to play with us again, but even with the death of that abomination, I think it Might have been for the best. TLDR, the DM decided it's appropriate to incorporate a rape dwarf into our one-shot involving an 11-year-old. This is so negligent on the DM's part that I'm going to just leave it to the comments. I don't have to say anything. Mighty Dolverk. I hate everything about that title, and the story didn't make it better. Janie Macaroni. Honestly, the second he kept going with that NPC, I'd have told the DM he would be calling Candle's parents to explain how and why they had been exposed to that content. You don't do that to an 11-year-old, even if it doesn't bother them. It's massively inappropriate. Alex Ranquist. Imagine your 11-year-old coming home and saying, I didn't enjoy the game, there was a rape dwarf. You'd be out for blood. Next post. DM equates in-game teasing and jokes at her son's expense to players' IRL trauma. Refuses to work with personal boundaries. I played in a party for a little over a year. It wasn't the best, but it was not abjectly terrible, and I was sick of being forever DM and was just happy to be playing. The table was comprised by me, the bard, my friend the barbarian, my friend the sorcerer, a druid, a rogue, and the DM's son. Cleric, 18 years old, since there had been some confusion. The cleric was a war cleric, and honestly, early in the game I thought he was a paladin given the playstyle and spells. The honest confusion turned into a running gag in-game that the cleric was really a paladin. Half the table got in on the inside joke, and it seemed harmless. Half the party would joke, meet our paladin, and the cleric would theatrically or comically proclaim, I'm not a paladin! Outside of RP, complaining he was a cleric. It was just seemed like a fun, quirky party dynamic that is important later on. Like many bards, my character was squishy and mainly a support caster with AoE. He was like 250 years old and acted like a big sister to a lot of the younger PCs, which I fully admit involved in-game teasing. Oh, going on a date? Bookworm? But no one out of game in over a year of playing weekly complained or asked that I pulled back on the character. I even asked. Had they, I absolutely could have tweaked my character for the fun of the table. The RP stayed pretty surface level and tame, and I did not see any signs of trouble. Apparently, I was wrong. Or at least, according to the DM, I was wrong. The DM had a bad habit of retconning or narratively strong-arming PCs into acting the way the DM wanted us to. She would literally speak over you in-game and say, actually, your character does this, or your character would respond like this, and then expect you to pick up her version. During my last session at the table, my bard who disliked to pix the NPC took an Eldritch Blast pot shot. I would learn later while talking with DM in private that the DM decided that player, me, needed to learn a lesson, so she made a ruse that the pixie was dead. DM proceeded to tell Druid, you are absolutely blinded with rage, and then directed Druid to roid out in wild shape. Druid to this point was a very peaceful PC and got along very well with my character. What the table, and even I did not know, was that some recent IRL trauma involving a trusted person in my life having a manic episode and pulling a gun, escalating to lethal force abruptly and with no pretense, which triggered a trauma response to being fictionally placed in a similar situation. Irrationally, I know. Working on it. As soon as Druid realized DM was pushing for lethal level PvP, Druid backed down and said no. But it was too late, and I was already panicking at the table without any idea why. I tried to get up and disengage. I can't play if this is how player conflict is going to go. So what does the DM do in response? Why, she doubles down and continues to use this as an opportunity to lecture me, the player, about bullying her son's PC. Rogue noticed I was clearly not okay and tried to step in, but the DM was not having it. Oh, when things happens that you don't like and you try to leave table, my poor son has been enduring your bullying for months and has tried to handle it through RP and you just don't listen. No, it honestly sounds like this was a running joke started by her son and this player. It seems like everything is perfectly fine. This lady's just being a fucking Karen. I'm sorry, what? Half the table engages in this joke. Why am I the target of this ire? And two, I'm going out on a limb here and say eliciting a previously unknown trauma response at the table is not the same as someone not liking a joke at their character's expense. I eventually escaped the table, and the next day, after some processing and time, messaged the DM why I reacted so strongly, and that I never consented to PvP. And it is apparently a very recent personal sore spot for me that I would like to avoid. The DM wouldn't have it. DM, so while I understand, believe me I do, I have issues with the double standard. I have asked the players over time and there has been a difficulty that has been ignored in game and none wanted to rock the table vibe at the time and preferred to try to handle it in game. But now they're being asked to alter their behavior in role-playing while others have been able to ignore their requests. It isn't equitable and now there's an issue. Me. Communication out of game would have solved all of that. The communication within the game wasn't listened to repeatedly, it was felt by multiple people. Why bother? Me and Bart are separate? One's fictional, and the other is a reasonable adult just trying to have fun. But that's a problem. When it's been communicated, what difference should it make? And having fun at another player's expense should have... They've said both within game and out of game after the game ends that they don't appreciate it. It's not right. Wait, so suddenly it's been mentioned to me out of game? After you just explicitly said Cleric insisted on trying to handle it through RP in-game? Damn, bitch. I don't have any recollection of that. And this whole time you've been insisting it was just Cleric. Now it's multiple players? Okay, yeah, sure. Sure! Again, most of these player complaints I've only heard through you out of game. Barbarian asked Cleric in person while we were at the table about if she went too far, and he said no, it was funny. At this point, the conversation wasn't getting anywhere. Had DM been like, oh, that sucks, I understand, let's try to make everyone's game better, etc., I would have been willing to try and work through it, but clearly the DM was not looking to reconcile. Half the table, me, Barbarian, and Sorcerer were extremely upset about how it all went down and quit immediately after the DM doubled down. I still don't know if Druid or Cleric have actual beef with me. Again, DM was the only one to share these issues with me. I reached out and wished them well, but in an effort to be amicable with the table break, I didn't go into details about my conflict with DM. Druid was sad to see me go and said they would love to play with me again sometime, so I have some doubts regarding the DM's version of events. TLDR, player openly discusses and communicates a recently discovered boundary regarding PvP and was told to deal with it because they, according to the DM, crossed boundaries unknowingly that were never brought to their attention or discussed at the table. Still, not sure how much of the DM's accusations were real. OP, I have no words for this. It's abusive, cruel, and there's just so much fucked up shit going on here. There's no way to actually describe how bad this is. I'm glad that you have left this group, and I hope that you have found a new one going forward. A DM wanted another type of relationship. So I'm gonna say this before I begin. I'm a horrible writer. Without any more stalling, let's begin. Okay. I had just started playing D&D since a friend decided to invite me into a campaign thing they would be starting. I asked them if being new was okay, and if they could teach me along the way. They said it was fine, and that they could. So the next week, we all gathered. They said that there was going to be homebrew things, and if everyone was fine with that, we all didn't really care and agreed it would be fine. The DM had us make our characters, and I ended up as a cleric. Before we started, he said that we all would have to come in some sort of cosplay. While some people get mad for no prior warning, we all still agreed. I got home, the DM sent me a message saying if I could cosplay a cleric from a not safe for work manga. I did not see any problem in doing this cosplay, so I was able to slowly make it the next time we should show up to the session. It felt really awkward being in that type of cosplay with only guys there, since my friend, the DM's girlfriend, couldn't do the campaign anymore. The DM had a seat open next to him and told me to sit there, so I did. When we started, it was fine, until the DM began to touch my leg. He was trying to make one hand up my stomach, other one down. I just kind of pushed it away. This dude's an absolute creep. Red flag number 2. Bolt, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out, now. No, this dude should be arrested. That's literal sexual assault. The DM called me in the next day saying he liked the last campaign so much that he wanted to have them on a daily basis. Everyone but me was happy with that, since we were talking about doing something like that prior. So the next day we showed up, I had to sit next to the DM again! He didn't do anything until a few months into the campaign. He said if I could stay after the campaign so he could talk on a way to make my character. And he had a normal conversation, but when I left, he groped my chest and began to touch me. I pushed him, left the home and his campaign. But I'm thinking of getting back into Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm not sure since I don't remember anything about it. Listen, OP, I feel really sorry about this situation. The DM absolutely abused their position of power in the table to somewhat force you into this vulnerable position where he could get to sexually assault you multiple times. A lot of the comments are missing the point of this post, which is that this DM needs to go die in a fire. They belong in jail. They sexually assaulted you multiple times, and they potentially, based on just the general writing style, might have sexually assaulted a minor, which could result in pedophilia charges, as well as attempted rape. There's a lot of different things that go into this. Long story short, this DM needs to have a pool of acid cast right under his feet. Other than that, listen, if you really do want to get back into D&D, I dropped a comment on your post under the name Elasia. Feel free to click on my username and message me with your actual account. I know that your throwaway was deleted. Don't worry about it. Feel free to DM me from a throwaway, an actual account, whatever. And I will set up a D&D one-shot for you and a couple of your friends, just to make sure that we show you what D&D is actually like. Because, listen, no one should ever have to go through this. Alright? Much love. Stay sexy. I hope to see you guys later. Bye-bye!